Okay. Apologies, Zoom. I just did the introduction while we were muted. But basically, this is Scott Henderson, who's a data scientist who works with me in eScience, and he's going to tell you about CloudBank.
Cool. Thanks, Noah. Thanks for coming by, everyone. As Noah mentioned, I work with him at the eScience Institute. I'm a research scientist there. I'm also a geologist. I work in the Earth and Space Sciences department here on campus. So um, we've been running Hack Weeks through eScience for a number of domains. NeuroHackademy is one of the original Hack Weeks, but um, I've been attending many of these events where we get together for like a week or two and have some cloud resources, and it's always like a pleasure, I think, to have really collaborative working experiences. And I think some of the like computational infrastructure that you use during these weeks is essential for collaboration these days. And CloudBank is a program designed to give US-based researchers accounts on major commercial cloud providers. So think of it as like you're experimenting with some workflows this week and you want to get your own account to maybe explore more, run like bigger analyses. Um, it's a great program for that. So just a show of hands first, are folks this week using Jupyter Hub for your work? Great. And how many people in the room have their own cloud accounts, like through your university or personal? This is AWS, Google, Azure, couple hands. Um, and how many folks are like aware of the resources on the cloud, but have no idea how to really like get an account or tap into these high powered cloud resources? Yeah, great. Perfect. It's like a very wide distribution. And I feel like that's really normal these days. There's this awareness that there's this thing called cloud computing, which can provide you almost like unlimited resources to run your analysis and give you access to higher power compute and like fancy new technology. Yet, like, it's often obscure how to get access to that and how to set things up. So Jupyter Hub is a great example where someone's put in the work to like make this really streamlined system to make it really easy to run computations on the cloud. Uh, the Jupyter Hub for this event is put together by a company called 2i2c, a nonprofit. I believe that's running in AWS. Yeah, so they've put in a bunch of work to create this infrastructure on Amazon Web Services that it makes it very easy for you to just log into a machine on Amazon Web Services in this case, and maybe select your compute resources. How many folks in the room have experience with HPC systems at their university? Okay, more. Um, I think one of the like main draws to cloud these days is that it opens up access that makes it easier to access like centralized resources that aren't gated by institutions. So you can sometimes make accounts for external collaborators in your local HPC system, but sometimes you can't. Nice thing about these platforms is it doesn't really matter what your institution is. You can just give someone like access, they can log in, you can share data sets. So it makes the collaboration really easy. Okay, so I'm going to just spend about 10 minutes talking about what CloudBank is and explain to you how you could get your own account. And then we could just discuss a bit more. I should have said this program is sponsored by NSF. There are a couple big NSF awards, and eScience is one of the partners in this relatively big award that includes also UC San Diego and UC Berkeley. And yeah, it's been going on for about 5 years. But this year there was an important renewal grant from NSF that opened up this platform to all US researchers and educators. So previously this was sort of a pilot program. It was only available to you if you were a PI and had like a grant from NSF and certain directorates. So pretty exclusive and largely tailored towards computer scientists. Um, And now it's open to anyone. So this is at the graduate student level or above, you can apply for one of these accounts. The condition is that you're affiliated with a US university. And I think it's also important, I was chatting to Noah about this beforehand, even if you're not at a US institution, if you're collaborating with the US-based researchers, they can get an account here and then add you as like a member of that account. So there are ways to work with this even internationally. There are two programs right now with CloudBank. One is if you're an educator, you can get access to a Jupyter Hub. And that's essentially just like what you're using this week. It's sort of a tailored program where if your institution doesn't provide you with Jupyter Hubs, you can apply and you just get a login basically, and you can use that for your classroom work. And then the second path is if you're a researcher, and that's where you can apply for your individual account to do some sort of computational project. So yeah, I mentioned this earlier, graduate student level or higher. And I think it's worth pointing out just a few recommended uses. So number one is that when you apply to this program, you have to have some sort of research project. It has to be a scientific project where you're proposing to use the cloud for a scientific end. It can't just merely be, I want to dabble with this or play around with this or put together some website. It has to have a scientific purpose. And then there's a list here of kind of some recommended generic types of things you could use cloud accounts for. So like LLM access. If you already have software tools that you're looking to expand and scale, that kind of scaling process is something you could do here. Unique hardware. Cloud providers have all kinds of crazy things like quantum computers you can rent that you cannot get anywhere else. So maybe you want to do something with that. You could also use it for looking at, cloud environments in general. If you want to test Azure versus AWS versus Google, I feel like that's more of a maybe computer scientist, interesting to computer scientists. And then hosting community tools. So this is exactly what we were mentioning before with the Jupyter Hub. Finally, this program is not really tailored towards large-scale GPU access. NSF has other programs that funnel you towards like dedicated GPU access. So if you're wanting like the latest GPU to use 24/7, this is not what you want to use for that. Okay, so what does this program provide? First and foremost, it's brokering cloud accounts. So I'll show you what the application looks like, but at the end of the day, you get a login for AWS, Google, or Azure. So that's this multiple clouds aspect of it. There's a consulting and help desk. This is also nice because often if you get a cloud account yourself, you have like very basic support plans with AWS or Azure or Google, and it will take days to hear back if you're having some technical issue or just a question. There's a dedicated team at UCSD who will like respond to you way faster than cloud providers. You have built-in cost monitoring and resource monitoring. So that's also not standard on AWS or other providers. One, I think, major impediment for people trying the cloud is that if you try to get an account with your personal credit card, it is like fully unbounded cost and terrifying. So here, you don't have to worry about that. You have like a fixed budget that you can never exceed. And then there's automated controls and checking how much you're spending. If something, if you accidentally create some resources that are costing a lot of money, you find out about that. And then finally, there are some like office hours and training materials that this program is putting together, which I'll point you to later. Yeah, so this is what I just mentioned here. The peace of mind with cost monitoring and then kind of facilitated access to multiple accounts rather than just one. You'll find as you get into cloud computing that not all providers have exactly the same thing. So it is convenient sometimes to have access to different providers. They have a variety of different services or like resource availability. The last point that I think is really important is these accounts are not credits. And so there are a lot of programs as well that are cloud credits that you can go to AWS and say, give me some trial credits to test this out. And they'll give you like $100 or sometimes big grants, like $10,000, but they're not actual funds. And so the use is restricted. Like you can actually use, if you're familiar with cloud services, marketplace services that are not provided by the cloud provider directly, you cannot use credits for. So there's all these little caveats with credits. Yeah, question.
I'm a little confused. So you're saying that there's no cost to the researcher, but there's billing accounts involved.
Correct. Yeah. You're one step ahead. So when you apply for one of these grants from CloudBank, you can select 3 tiers of award, and then you're given like $10,000 in a billing account with the cloud providers. So that's the billing account. It's all managed by this program sitting at UCSD. But when you apply, there are these tiers. So generally, if you're kind of a first-time user of cloud, you go for this Explore level award, which is up to $10,000 a year. And it's about a 1-page proposal to get one of these. I'll explain how you do it in a minute. But there are these other tiers too, if you're interested in like bigger stuff. So Discover and Accelerate's like if you already have cloud resources and you want to scale to bigger projects, those are more competitive, like a slightly bigger proposal, slightly like more rigorous review of what it is. So you kind of, for those, you have to be somewhat established already, I would say, in your use of cloud. But these Explore awards are great for getting started. They're provided in 2 installments, and then you can renew them after a year if you want to keep doing what you're doing. So what does the process look like? Has anyone here used NSF's Access portal? Does that ring a bell? Nobody? Yeah, I learned about it this year. I didn't know it existed. It's a centralized like web portal for all NSF high performance computing. So if you just search for NSF Access, it'll come up, and it's actually kind of nice. Like you can create an account there through your institutional login and apply for different programs. CloudBank is one of many. But if you wanted to use one of NSF's HPC centers, you would also go through here, and you could kind of do the same thing. Like apply for one of these Explore class allocations, and then say, I want to use Jetstream, NSF's, one of NSF's HPCs, or various other things. Cloud is just one of many like resources you can access. So step 1 to this process is you sort of estimate what your costs would be. There are a variety of calculators to do this if you know your workflow in advance. You request one of these allocations through Access. That's this 1-page proposal explaining basically your scientific project and what you want to use for your computations. Then once it's awarded, if it's selected or you need to iterate, it's usually pretty fast for these Explore level awards. You exchange these credits, which can be moved between HPC or cloud or whatever, to your cloud account. So that's where you get into CloudBank. There's a short onboarding with like basic, here's some security things to keep in mind and best practices. And then you're able to just log in to these accounts and start using them. So overall, that process is about a week from apply to logging in and using those resources. So finally, there's a homepage where tons more information about what I've covered. There is a community forum for asking questions. It's a public forum, so you'll find, questions and answers there for like, how do I actually launch this resource? Or you can go through this help email that I mentioned earlier, which is direct to groups at UC San Diego who can help one-on-one troubleshoot whatever you're doing on the cloud. That's the overview I have today. So I think at this point, any questions, be happy to just discuss a bit what you're thinking. Yeah.
So mostly, what are the restrictions on the number of grants that you can hold at a time or over your lifetime? And how does it affect your a number of multiple projects?
Yeah. So I don't think there's not a firm limit in terms of if you have an Explore award, you can also be part of one of these Discover or Accelerate or someone else's award. I believe you can be a PI on one at a time, but I'm actually not sure. You'll notice one thing on the top row here for Explore, it says you do not need PI status on any grants to get that award, but it is actually a condition of these like larger awards that you have some sort of grant that you can point to and say, I have this grant to do this project, but I want to supplement it with this CloudBank work. So there is sort of a requirement there where you do need for these higher level resources, like a grant to point to. I think if you have multiple grants to point to, you could go for like multiple Explore awards and point to them separately also. And then over time, this is a big multi-year grant from NSF. Right now, it lasts for at least 5 years. So when you get one of these awards, you have this potential to renew it for 5 years into the future, at least.
It seems to me like these larger grants are targeted PIs, but I would guarantee you that if you came to your PI with 3 pages of a proposal based on the project in your lab, they would probably submit this for you.
Yeah.
And be happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. And this first level up to 10,000 for these credits is 1 page. It couldn't be easier to like write these things compared to most grants. Quite straightforward. Any other thoughts or like, yeah, in the back?
Yeah. I'm audible. Yeah. So I'm wondering what vendors will write this and what kind of projects are supported by this ventures.
Yeah.
Also the timeline, like you mentioned multiple years, but 2-3 years or longer, or could it be shorter and then extended as it may?
Yeah.
Well,
No, that's okay. That's good. Yeah, good clarification. So the question was just to clarify a bit more on the types of projects that are being funded currently, and then the timelines of when you could submit and how long these things last. So it's rolling. You can apply for this anytime you want. And like I think here I mentioned, it's about a week to do one of these Explore proposals between application and getting a response, potentially doing the whole thing and getting your account. I can mention a few projects. So I applied for one of these Explore awards earlier this year. And that project was to work with a large data set that is hosted in Europe at one of Azure's data centers. So I work with a student who is studying snow properties and needs access to this like data set that exists, but is in West Europe, in a West Europe Azure data center. So we applied to this program and said we want to run computations that run in that Azure data center where this data is that we need. and then create cloud storage so that we can make those products, the results of our computations available to a larger group to collaborate with. So that proposal involves those up to 10K a year, but I think we only asked for 2,000 a year because we didn't need a lot. We wanted to run some kind of bursting computations, just a one-off computation, and then store the data going forward, which is about a terabyte. And so the costs were not that great. But that was one project that seemed well suited to this program because we needed access to Azure specifically. And so that's what we went for. I will mention too, this Discover, let's see if I have. Okay, yeah. One of the Discover level awards, this higher level award, is actually another one that I'm involved with to provide these Jupyter hubs like the one you're using this week, but for other events that don't have like the history of support that NeuroHackademy does. So that's one where it's like an example of a platform that is designed to be accessible by like a lot of people rather than just your small lab group. And the idea here was to have Jupyter hubs and other things. So this is just like you see, I think, with NeuroHackademy, except we provide this to other events nationally. So I should say also, if you're thinking about running your own event, this is something we could also talk about. But the idea with this Discover Award was to make it more straightforward for people to use some of these like pre-configured resources for educational like events and workshops. So we're setting up Jupyter hubs, we're setting up access to LLMs through that same grant, that Discover grant, where we're just putting things together that we can like give out to other academic groups more easily. Does that answer some of the questions?
Yeah. I might bug you later with detailed questions.
Yeah, it's possible. You know, it's a good question. I feel like we should just have a list of like categories of awarded events or awarded grants. I think part of the goal, because this is the first year of it being open to any group, was to start showing that, yeah, there are computational social scientists using this and neuroscientists and geologists, just to show the kind of breadth of project type. I think some of that information is public. Like if you go on the Access website, you can actually see public abstracts of awards.
Other questions?